All right, welcome back, everybody. For those of you who are watching at home on YouTube, this is the second part of the week 1 live session. I broke it up into 2 videos. If you haven't already, please make sure that you watch the first video. I went over a ton of information for this course, for the discussion, things to help you on your quiz this week. So if you did not watch that first video, you're really going to lose out. So make sure that you watch that first video. All right, and for those of you who have, welcome to our second video. And for those of you who might be rewatching, who came to the live session, you're hearing this live and then you might be hearing it again. You know, it's all cool. All right, so we're going to discuss our assignment for week 1. I really want to go over this with you. And again, those readings and videos on the homepage, make sure that you go over those before you get into InDesign. It's really going to fill in the blanks of everything that I am doing here tonight. If you don't watch those videos, I really feel that and if you've never gotten into InDesign before, there's a good chance you're going to find yourself confused, because I'm kind of going to be working. I only have an hour to do everything that I want to do in InDesign, so I'm going to have to skip over a couple of things that will be covered in those videos. All right, so let's go over our objectives for this assignment. This is actually a 2-week assignment. Both assignments in this course, week 1 is the first part, and then week 2 finishes it up. Going into week 3, we will again have a 2-week assignment where week 3 is the first part and then week 4 finishes it up. So it's really important to make sure that you don't miss the first week, because I give you valuable feedback that you're going to need to go into the second week for both of those assignments. That's part of that looking ahead. All right, so we are going to, again, be creating a new document in InDesign. We're going to be using text frames and images. You're going to utilize the rectangle tool at least. You may use the oval and line tool. It's kind of up to you. You're going to show correct image resizing and cropping methods. Utilize InDesign's character panel to apply changes to font size, kerning, tracking, and leading, and illustrate how to utilize the color palette. And then you are going to need, this is a big one, you're going to need to package that file at the end and upload the packaged zip file. Before you begin your assignment, I want to go over some file management with you. Number 1, things that are downloaded to your computer, they go to your downloads folder. And if your downloads folder looks anything like mine, and this is only from this weekend, because I work for 2 different schools and my students have to submit doc files all the time, so I end up with all of this stuff. And then I was also working on something else, so I downloaded a whole bunch of images this weekend. So there's all this stuff in my downloads panel. Do not work out of your downloads folder. It will get confusing. Things will get lost. You will have multiple versions of things. And I can almost with 100% assurance, those are some good Vegas odds right there, guaranteed that you will accidentally zip and upload the incorrect file to me, which means then that I won't have your file. I will have to go back and forth with you, and then things will be late. So please make sure that you do not work out of your downloads folder. I personally like Dropbox. There are paid versions of Dropbox, but there are also free versions of Dropbox that gives you so many megabytes free or so what have you. I pay for a lot of storage because I have a lot of things. Some people like to work off of an external hard drive, another great option, because you should really have a place where you are backing up your work that is not just the hard drive on your computer, because if you have ever lost a hard drive on your computer, which I have, that means that you will lose everything that is on your computer. And you are building a portfolio right now. So, rule number 1, don't work out of your downloads folder. Rule number 2, please always be backing up somewhere. That's like the ABS of graphic design. Again, I use Dropbox. Google Drive also has some free options. There's a lot of different free options there. So, I also use Google Drive. You will notice that there's a certain way that I set up my folders. I make a folder for each mod. We're in mod 4. I am teaching DES 105. Within here, I have a folder with, not like it matters, but my naming conventions for the live session videos. It's just a blank folder, so every single time I can just go copy and paste and put in the date, so I know that there's consistency to how I'm naming my stuff for you. I have a folder that has some of my documents that I need, and then I have a folder for each week. You should somewhere, either in Dropbox, Google Drive, even your iCloud Drive, make a folder called DES 105. Everything you work on now goes into that DES 105 folder. Make a folder for week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4. Then in there, make a folder for your discussion. Write your discussion post in Word. You're going to catch those grammatical errors. You're going to catch those spelling errors. It'll format your citations for you. You'll be good to go. Make a folder for your work, assignment for that week. Make a folder and put it in there and work out of that folder. These are all things that will really help you. If you have a whole bunch of other stuff for the week, make a folder called Other. Put the other stuff in there. This is how I set up my stuff. And know what? I always know where everything is when I need to access it. So please make sure you do something, because what you need to do when you are packaging is you need to direct those files to a certain place on your computer. And if you're working out of your downloads folder, that means that every time you package a file, you're going to end up packaging it into your downloads folder, and it's going to get lost amongst all the other things that you download day in and day out, and it's going to get really confusing, because every time you make a change, like let's say that you think that your ad is done, and you go, oh crap, you know what? I didn't place that logo how I wanted to. Like part of it's cut off. I got to fix that. You need to repackage that file. And if you have all of these different versions of a packaged file in your downloads folder, how do you know which one is the correct one to zip and upload to me? You probably don't. So again, make sure that you are organized with those files. Organization and time management are probably 50% of being a graphic designer. Seriously. Right away, 50%. All right, so back to our assignment. Our background for this week is, InDesign's the industry standard for layouts of all kinds. Graphic artists utilize InDesign to bring text and graphics together with the ability to manipulate and change both quickly and easily. Effects such as drop, shadows, highlights, bevels, and more can be added and removed effortlessly within the InDesign platform. However, don't go bananas. If your design is strong, you really don't need any of those things. I'm just going to let you know. Another strength of InDesign is its type tool and character panel. InDesign delivers the ability to minutely tweak anything related to a font, its size, position, and many other attributes, which is a designer's dream come true. Multiple page documents such as books and magazines are almost exclusively created in InDesign as well. InDesign shares many tools with both Photoshop and Illustrator, including the eyedropper, text on a path, gradient, pen tool, and more. This will help tremendously with your learning curve as you step into this powerful yet user-friendly interface. So for this assignment, you are going to create some cover designs for a menu. During week 2, you're going to do the rest of the menu design, maintaining the styles that are introduced in your cover. In the field of graphic arts, we frequently give the client more than one option to choose from. Therefore, this week, you will be designing 2 versions of the same menu cover. So what that means is there are 3 different 3 different restaurants you can choose from. You need to design 2 different menus because next week you'll choose one menu and then design, you'll choose one cover and then design the menu to go along with it. So 2 different options to show me because I'm your client, and you know what? I really just want to see 2 different options. So review the 3 options below and decide which one it is that you want to do. You know, the choice is yours. You're going to create a new InDesign document with the following specifications. So you need to follow. Your page size needs to be 8.5 by 11. You need to have 2 pages. The specific margin is 0.375, your bleed is 0.125, and you need to uncheck facing pages. I'm going to show you how to set this up, don't worry. Also, the initial default setting for InDesign is in picas or P, so make sure you have that changed, that you've changed your preferences to be inches before you create your new document. Again, go back to that video that I showed you in the first part of the live session that's in the announcements where I show you how to change that. You need to use the logo and the tagline from your chosen restaurant and create a menu cover layout. You may add colored or patterned backgrounds utilizing the photos provided, plus add lines or shapes to your design. It can be as simple or as complex as you think the restaurant warrants. Then you're going to go to page 2 and you're going to create a second version. So create me another cover. And consider trying maybe a different background and or experimenting with different opacities or colors or type combinations. Remember, whatever you start here, you will carry to the other side for week 2's assignment. If you copy the layout from the example, your creativity score on the rubric, it says may be low, it will be low. Do not cover the example. Copy the example. Package the file when you are finished and be sure to include all images, fonts, and a high-res PDF. Again, I will show you how to do all of this. Then you're going to zip that package folder and name it in DES 105 underscore assignment 1, your last name, and put like the first initial of your first name just in case. That's it. Just in case that there's multiple people with the same last name. I've had that happen, and I had like 3 people who had the same last name, and they all named their file with just their last name. And I was like, I need to reference back and see whose is whose. And then you'll turn in the zip file. So here are your choices. Number 1 is Maxwell's. Number 2 is Starlight Bistro. And number 3 is Walk and Roll. So I'm going to, each one has a link for you to download their assets. So I'm going to create a different menu cover than one of these 3. And the reason why is I feel that once you see me design something, it will be very hard not to follow my example. So I don't want to do that to you. I'm going to kind of do all of the same things that you would be doing. I'm just going to use different artwork. So I'm going to set up my file the same way. I'm going to package my file the same way. I'm just going to use different artwork. But I will download Maxwell's assets just so you can see kind of how to do this right from the start. So click on the link and it's going to download to my downloads folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in one Finder window, I have my DES 105 folder that I created open, and I'm going to open up week 1, and I'm going to go into that folder that I have labeled assignment. Then I'm going to open up a new browser window next to it, and I'm going to go over to downloads, and in my downloads, I'm going to double click on the zip file and open it, and then I'm going to drag the Maxwell's file over to this assignment folder. So now I have all of my assets in here. And you will notice that there is a doc file called Maxwell's menu cover text, and then there's one for Maxwell's menu text. Don't worry about the menu text. We're going to deal with that next week. You just want to open up whatever doc file says cover text, because you're going to need to add that information to your menu cover. All right, so it says logo. What that means is in that file, there is a logo. There's a logo file right there. So you don't need to actually add the word logo. that just note that you're going to need to place the logo on the cover. Then it says fine steaks and seafood. Then we have an address, we have a phone number, and we have some hours on this page. That's all we have. You'll also notice some things seem to be grouped together. Think of proximity, why you would put like things next to each other. You probably want to put fine steaks and seafood next to the logo because this is probably their tagline. So they want them placed next to each other on the file. You want to keep the address together. Basically, you can probably put the phone number anywhere, but make it prominent. And then you want to keep all of the hours together. So this is your ad copy for this. So I'm going to go back into my browser and I'm going to start right at the top. I'm going to make a new InDesign document with the following specifications. So there's a couple of different ways. You can hit the button for create new. You can do file new document, or you can hit Command N. There's 3 different ways to go about doing something. All right, I know that this needs to be 8.5 by 11 and it needs to be 2 pages. I'm going to change this to 2. And it's telling me to turn off facing pages. You'll notice that's right next to there and it defaults to being turned on. So I'm going to unclick that, uncheck that box. I want to make sure my orientation is set at portrait. And my page is starting at number 1. I was working on something else that was 3 columns, so I'm going to bring this back to 1 column. And my margin needs to be 0.375, so I'm going to just copy that and open up margins down here. And this is locked, so once I put in 0.375, once I click into this box, it's going to add it in for all of my margins, which is great. And then this document has a bleed. What that means is that when it goes to a print shop, the piece is going to be cut to 8.5 by 11, but it's probably going to be printed on a large roll of paper with maybe 4 of them up. Let me show you this, because sometimes if you can see an example, bleed on press, 4-color press. All right, so what that means is here's 2 business cards that are set up side by side. So because I want my background to extend all the way to the edge, I need to bleed it off of the page to where my bleed is, not put it at my margin. Because there's a chance when it gets to the cutter that sometimes the paper shifts a little bit back and forth, so it won't be cut correctly, and that way it won't extend all the way to the edge. Here's another example. See how it goes past? This is incorrect. It only goes to the edge. It doesn't go to the crop marks where it's going to be cut. So that's where we're setting up that bleed. And our bleed, the industry standard is 0.125 for a bleed. So we're going to set that up at 0.125. And again, I have this locked, so it's going to put that in on all sides. And don't worry about the slug. And then if you wanted to preview it, you can, but just hit create. And it's going to create that file. So here are the different areas. Here's my bleed line. So anything that I need to bleed needs to extend off of my page. Here's my page and go right out either to this red line or even past it. It can even go past it. Here's my margin, this pink line right here, and where the white meets the gray, this is the edge of my document. So this is where it's going to be cut right here. And the reason why we add this margin is anything that is pertinent information. So let's refer back to that Word document. My logo, any of my text, that should all stay within my margin because that is the only area that the printer will guarantee will not accidentally be cut. And that's extremely important because, like I said, sometimes things can shift from side to side. I have seen some horribly cut jobs that have come back to me and I'm like, no, this is cut way too close. And the first thing that they say to me is, well, where was your margin? And I say to them, my margin was 0.375. And I can show you on my document that I have things set up within my margin. You cut way too close and it's way too much space over here. And I have gotten jobs reprinted for free because they have messed up that way. So it's way more common than you think. So make sure that you adhere to those margins. That's really, really important, because if you run something right to the document edge and it gets cut, your printer is going to say to you, well, you didn't adhere to the margin, and our policy is, and there somewhere will be something that you signed that said what their policy was, and that will be on you to pay out of your pocket to have something reprinted. So it's really important. All right, so we have this set up. So again, you'll notice we turned off facing pages. So this is a 2-page layout. You can open up pages, which should be over here. If anything is not showing up, kind of like I have it showing up on my screen, under window, you can find it. So you've got your color, which has your gradients, your swatches. Just kind of go through here and look and see what it is that you're looking for. You may need your align tool. That's under objects and layout. I always go searching for this one. Your output tool, which is actually kind of important. We won't be going over that tonight. Your type tool, your character panel. That probably didn't default to be open. I have it open on mine. Pages right there. So anything you're looking for can be found under your window. So under pages, you can see we're on page 1. And then here's page 2, or you can just kind of scroll down and manually get to page 2. If this was set up as a spread, page 1 and page 2 would be side by side, and you don't want that set up that way. So again, that's why you had to uncheck that. So you will notice in the instructions, it told you that you can add a colored or a patterned background. I'm going to show you where to find some cool patterns. This is going to require a little bit of Photoshop knowledge. So if you don't know Photoshop and you're like, whoa, hold on, it's not a requirement that you do this. But for those of you who do know Photoshop, this is one thing that you can do. There's a website, and it's called subtlepatterns.com. And I will actually copy and paste this. It might already be in my slides, but let me see. It is not. So I'm going to put this on the first slide that says assignment. Or actually, yeah, I'll put it on the first slide that says assignment. Patterns. There you guys go. So that way you can get right to that. Whoops. Make that link a different color. There you go. So that'll help you out. This website is awesome. What you can do is you can download a pattern and in Photoshop put it together and place it right in InDesign. And there's about 40 different patterns that you can choose from. I'm just going to download this one. Not 40 different patterns, 40 different pages or more that you can choose from. You can get lost on this website for hours just looking at pretty patterns. So, again, it's in my downloads folder. I am working out of my assignment folder, which has all of my art that I am going to be using today. So I'm just going to drag this one in. In InDesign, if you want to know what size to make it for a background, go to, again, your rectangle frame tool, and you are going to start drawing at the upper left-hand corner of the red area, and then draw down to the bottom right-hand corner. So the width is 8.75 and the height is 11.25. You're going to want to remember these two numbers when you get into Photoshop because you're going to make a new document that size. All right, so I need 8.75 by 11.25. And because this is, hold on, before I forget the numbers again. Because this is a printed piece, I'm gonna make it 300 DPI, but I'm also going to make it CMYK color because when you package things, it's going to give you an error if your images are RGB. So what you might want to do when you download those images for whatever menu you choose, I know it doesn't say to do this in the assignment, but if that error is annoying you, open up these different images, the JPEGs, and save them from RGB to CMYK in Photoshop, and they'll get rid of that error. All right, so again, I downloaded that pattern, but I actually need to make a patterned background. So I just need to remember, again, I know I put it in my folder, so I know where to find it. I've made my new document, and I'm just gonna do File Open, and go over to Mod 4, DES 105, Week 1, my assignment, and here it is. I'm gonna open that up in a new area. And I want to do Edit, Define Pattern. And it's going to grab everything that is open and make it a pattern. And just hit OK. And this is going to seamlessly pattern on your background. Then I'm going to go back to that new document that is the actual size of my background. I'm going to do an Edit, Fill. And I want to fill it with, instead of foreground color, background color, I'm going to go to Pattern and select that pattern I just made, that Spiration Light. Hit OK. You can see I've done this before. And it's really small and subtle, but that's okay. And maybe I will give it a color overlay. So fill it with color. Kind of like a sandy color. Yeah, like that. Normal, multiply. And that pattern's really small. I do have another one in here. I might just do a fill and see if that one's a little bit better. A little bit better of a pattern. Let's see. This one's like super small. Oh, that one's way bigger, although ugly, albeit ugly. I know I have a wave one too, which will actually go with what I'm doing. You can see that I use patterns all the time. I'm just gonna do this one. Swirl and turn this off. Really? No? There we go. All right, swirls. There we go. And I'm just going to save it as Spiration B for background. And I'm going to save it as a TIFF. Hit OK. And close that out. And close that out. And we're good. And go back to my Photoshop document. All right. So because I already drew that text box, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually place that file into this text box. And you can tell that I'm using the correct text box because it's giving me that square in the middle. If I used the rectangle tool, I wouldn't get that square. And yes, technically, you can place an image into the rectangle tool, but you need to be using the rectangle frame tool that is using it correctly. So use that to place your images into that rectangle frame tool, which is the one on top. I'm going to do I always do this with a quick key, file, edit, place, 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 place. It's Command D, edit, paste, place, place and link. There we go. No. Ugh, good Lord. I'm sorry. I use quick keys a lot, and sometimes I'm like, wait a minute. I need file, place. Here we go. Finding it in the drop down. And navigate over to Mod 4. And again, I know where everything is, so I can get right to it, where I saved everything. That's why that putting things in certain places. And it placed it right there in the background. I hit it twice, so it wanted to place it twice. There's my image, and it's going right to my bleed line, but you can still see where my cut edge is and where my margin is. So next, what I want to do is I'm going to place another larger image that I'm then going to use that gradient mesh tool that I was telling you about that I thought was really cool. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to place this image a little bit different than how I just showed you because there's a lot of different ways to do things. So I'm going to hit Command D without drawing a box. And I'm going to grab my next image that I want to use. Which is, if you hit the space bar on your images, it will give you a preview. I'll use this one. This one. There we go. And open. And see how it's giving me a little preview of the image? There's two things I can do. I can click down and drag and place it. Or I can just literally click my mouse and place it. And it'll place it at full size. And if you want to know what full size is, this is where that white arrow comes into play, that direct selection tool. So I can take my white arrow and click anywhere within my image, and it gives me a hand tool. Click on it, and I can see what size I place this as. So it's only at 44% of its original size. I can go up to, you shouldn't go over 100%, but you can go like a smidge over 100%, and it's not the end of the world, but you really want to keep it around 100% or less. Anything over 100% that you're placing your image at, it's going to end up being pixelated and showing up low res. So you really don't want to do that. So again, there's two different ways that you can do something. I want to scale this to the width of my background. So I can hold down a couple of different keys. It's the Command Shift key and drag this corner, and it's going to scale this proportionally. So just holding Command and Shift. Or what I can do is I can go to that free transform tool, make sure that this is locked, and again, scale this. And you can double check that scale proportionally, and it did not. Ooh, you bugger. So I want it to be 60 by 60. There we go. Sometimes it just doesn't lock it. And if you want it, if you drew a box and you want it to fit proportionally in the box, you can go to, I gotta find this in here, edit object, fitting, fit content proportionally. And it'll fit it proportionally within the box. And then you can just kind of, with again the white arrow tool, kind of bump it up to the top, or you can manually drag it right up to the top of that box. Move back down. Again, want to make sure it gets right to the bleed. Line. There we go. And sometimes I like to do this, I like to close up the extra areas of my text box or my picture frames. So I might even just close it right up to the bleed line. You don't have to, but you know, it makes it a little bit neater. So remember how I was telling you about that gradient feather tool? I am going to feather the bottom of this image so it starts to blend into that cool background that I made. You may not think it's cool, but we'll pretend it's cool. So you want to click on the gradient feather tool, and you're going to go over, and sometimes I mess this up. You need to select the image that you want to feather, and then start, I believe, from the image out towards where you want it to feather. So I'm going to start right here and drag out, and it's going to feather up from the edge. And I need to get right there. Let me zoom in a little. See how it's starting to feather that? And where I stop is where the feathering is. So if you want it to be like a really large gradient, and I'm holding down shift to get a nice straight line, you might do something like this so it really feathers up. And that looks good. And if you're having trouble visualizing it because of the different, you know, lines that it shows, like it shows my text box line and things like that, you can go to your view, and where it's under normal, change it to preview, and it's going to cut it to show you what it's going to look like cut. And then it takes off all of those edges so you can kind of see what it looks like. I wouldn't work in preview mode just because, you know, you want to be aware of where your bleed lines are and where your margins are, and it does take those off. All right, so I've been doing a couple of things here. I want to make sure I save this file because save and save often. You don't want to lose your work. I've lost many a design. I'm going to copy the naming convention from right here. Copy that, go to my InDesign file and do a file save as. And again, I'm just going to put it in that My Assignment folder. Make sure I'm in the right mod. And just name that, and I'm going to change your last name to be S. McNamara, and I'll hit save. And then I'm going to do a little bit more on my design. So I'm going to place a logo, and again, my logo needs to be within my margin. So I'm going to do a file place and select my logo, which is not in that folder, it's out here. And click and drag till I get right about where I want to be. Oh, whoops, wrong logo. I have a nice box for it. Oh, I forgot why I named it. Oh, Wine Festival logo. Durr. And that's not really showing up. So I need to put this, like something behind this. So I have a couple of different options. I can use my rectangle tool, and again, my logo is within my margin, but I can maybe draw a box and go swatches and maybe make a white box, and you'll notice, oh crap, now it's on top of my logo. What do I do? Well, there's a couple of different things you can do. You can go to object and try to arrange it by sending it backwards a couple of times until, you know, the logo pops up. My thing that I would always do is I would start out here with my black mouse, drag until I got just the things that I needed to send to the back, and I would then just send all of those to the back, and I would know that my logo would end up in the front. There's a couple of different quick keys that you can do too. So this kind of takes care of that, and maybe I want this centered, so I'm going to grab my logo and I'm going to hold shift, and then I'm going to select my rectangle box. So now I have both of those selected at the same time. And I'm going to go into Window, go to Objects and Layout, and I want to grab my alignment tool. And I want to align them horizontal, and I want to align them vertically. And I might need to just bump it in a smidge by hitting over to keep it within the margin, and click off. I can close that back up. So I've got my Wine Festival logo there. And then I need to add a banner here. So I'm gonna do, I'm gonna draw a box for that. And do File, Place. I'll place right into that box. And there's my banner. Or this one. This one's good. And you'll notice I made my box too small. So I have two options. I can kind of open up my box like this and then try to resize it. Or again, I can go into Object, Fitting, and fit content proportionally, and it's going to fit it proportionally. And then I can just kind of close that up, the edges, and I'm holding down Shift and Command. And I'm dragging from one corner right to the bleed, the other corner, get it right to the bleed. Might need to close it up just a smidge. Or actually, I'll close this one up and get it right around where the cut line is. There we go. Because it doesn't really matter if that gets cut. It's the information that's in it that I want to make sure. And I'll overlay it a little bit over where my fade is. Next, I need to add in some text. So I need to draw my text box first. So I'm going to go to my type tool and select it. And you'll notice as soon as, look at what happens up here. As soon as I select my type tool, all of these options change and they're now all dealing with text, everything that has to do with text, which is great because, you know, it kind of stinks to have to keep going up here, having to keep going into your drop down. So I'm just going to click and drag to draw my text box. I'm going to keep it within my margin. And Adobe InDesign always defaults to Mini and Pro. You should not be designing with Mini and Pro. I'm going to pick a different font. I'm actually going to pick Garamond Regular. And I want my text centered. For some reason lately in my Adobe programs, every time I draw a text box, it defaults to align right. And in Photoshop, my quick keys for alignment are backwards, and I don't know what happened. It happened after the last update, and it's been driving me bonkers. But because I teach back-to-back mods, I have not had a chance to delete everything and try to fix it. But yours hopefully will not do that. Hopefully it'll just align left automatically. At least my quick keys are corrected in InDesign. In Photoshop, if I do Command-Shift-L, which should be left align, Command-Shift-C is center, and Command-Shift-R is right. If I do Command-Shift-L in Photoshop, it right aligns, and if I do Command-Shift-R in Photoshop, it left aligns. If you want to have something drive you absolutely nuts, you can come use my computer sometime. So I have some text. Now, you have your text in a Word document, which means that you can copy and paste this. So I'll show you how. I'm going to copy that, go into InDesign. I have my text set up. I've changed my font to what I want. And I'm just going to do an edit paste right into that text box. And there's all that text. I don't need to retypeset anything, which is great. You shouldn't retypeset anything because that's when you're going to end up having spelling errors, or maybe you miss something or what have you. If your client gives you a Word document with everything typed out for you, number one, thank them and tell them that they are your favorite client, because not a lot do that. And number two, copy and paste and use their text. Bonus, if you see an error, you fix the error, and then you let your client know, hey, just wanted to let you know there was a little error. I took care of it though, and they will love you. Those are my tips and tricks for being the world's best graphic designer. All right, so that would be how you would set your text. I am not going to set my text that way. Also, you can change your font size by using the up-down arrows, but if you have everything selected, which is a Command A, you can hold down Command and Shift, and if you do Command Shift and hit the comma, that makes your font smaller. Command Shift and hit the period, that makes your font bigger. Or you can always just use the up and down arrows, either one. I, however, am going to put in some text for this. Award-winning wines from the premier growing regions of, and I'm going to do next line, Argentina, New Zealand, South Africa, Australia, and Chile. All right, and then I have some other information. I'm going to change my font because it's a little bit different information. I'm going to change it just to Acumen Pro, we'll say. I probably wouldn't normally pick this font, but just for time. And I'm going to say, for complete information and to purchase tickets, please visit our website. Maybe make that a little bit bigger. All right, so clearly these two, this information and this information are different. So there's a couple of different ways that I can separate out this information to make it look different on my page. I can take this and I can put it in its new text box, on its own, and I can move it anywhere. I can manually hit return. Or what I can do is I can open up the paragraph tab and I can add in some space between these paragraphs. So there's a couple of different ways to do that. I can add space after this paragraph. See how it shows a box at the bottom for space after? So if I hit up, it adds some space. Or I can place my cursor here and add some space before this paragraph. There's really a couple of different options that I can do. So I'm going to add space before, and then that kind of visually, disconnects that information. And then again, maybe I want to put a bar behind this with some color. So I'm going to grab my rectangle tool. I'm going to start at my bleed and draw my rectangle box. And then I'm going to go into my swatches, but I really want to use this red color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my eyedropper tool. I still have my rectangle selected. I'm going to click on my eyedropper tool, and I'm just going to eyedrop that red right there. And you'll notice it says image is a vector graphic. Eyedropper values are based on low resolution RGB proxy. And then you're like, what does that mean? Just say, okay, that's fine. And go over here where it's added that color and double click. And you want to tell it, add an RGB swatch. And we're going to have to do kind of two steps. So we're going to add that swatch. There it is. It's now in my swatches. Then I'm going to hit OK. Then I'm going to go over to the swatch and I'm going to double click on it because I need to change it from RGB to CMYK. So I'm going to go to that drop down that says RGB and I need to scroll up, change that to CMYK and hit OK. And I'm going to select this text box. I'm going to go Object, Arrange, and I want to bring it to the front. And then I'm going to move that box behind there. But obviously, I can't see the black text over that box. So I want to change the text color of just this line. So I don't want to select everything. I want to make sure I just select that line. And right down here where it was the background color, for that box, it's now my text color. So I can double click on it and I can manually go in and change the black K to 0 and hit enter, and that'll change it to white. That's one way to do it. But I can also go over to my swatch panel and again, make sure it's on the T and I can select any color. Paper is actually white. And then just go back to your black arrow, select off, and you can hit Command 0 and that puts everything back in the screen. So I might want to add in some images down here, but we're running a little bit late. And I really want to go over packaging the file and zipping the file. So I'm going to save my document, hit Command S or go up to File, Save that document. And this is the part that you need to do. So again, I have my assignment folder. I need to package this file. This is extremely important. I need to package it and I need to make a press-ready PDF for it. The first thing I want to do is I want to set myself up for winning in this class and in other classes where I need to make PDF files that have a bleed. And I am going to show you how to do that right now. Go up to File, and you want to go to Adobe PDF Presets. And just go to the one that says High Quality Print. And it's going to say, all right, what do you want to save that file? Navigate over to where you have your assignment saved. You should be able to see it because you'll know it's the one you're working on because it's going to, number one, have the name. But number two, it's going to put this 0 kilobyte temp file because the file is open above it and it's going to just look like a big squiggly mess. That's how you know you're in the right folder. And just hit save for your PDF. And it's always going to default and name your PDFs exactly what your InDesign file is called. And then it's going to open up this, this window where you can make changes. So what I want you to do is I want you to go down to Marks and Bleeds and click on All Printer Marks, Use Document Bleed Settings. So these two. And then I want you to hit Save Preset and name it whatever you want, but name it something that makes sense. Like, I always name it Marks and Bleeds and hit OK. Then hit Export. And it's going to make that PDF. And that's great. You will now have a PDF file outside of your packaged folder. You can double check it, see how it's got my crop marks. It's got my registration marks. Perfect, perfect, perfect. But I still need to package this because I need to actually submit a packaged InDesign file. So I'm going to go up to File. I'm going to go to Package. And you can see one of my images uses an RGB color space. I already know it's probably this banner. For this assignment, it's okay if you get that error because your assignment doesn't tell you to change everything to CMYK. If it really bothers you and you know how to do that, you can change everything to CMYK and you can go into your links and relink your images. And you'll need to figure out how to do that part. Go through, you shouldn't have anything missing. You should have 4 spot colors. And then you want to hit the package button. And it's going to say printing instructions, just hit continue. Then you need to figure out, you need to navigate now because it might go to the last folder that you had open in InDesign, which for me was my week 4 folder from mod 3. So I can go to recent places and find my assignment there, or I can navigate mod 4, week 1, and find my folder. That's why it makes sense to have a logical hierarchy of your folders and know where everything is, because you need to find this folder afterwards. So if you just willy-nilly put it anywhere, you will have a very hard time if you put it in your downloads, then scrolling through all of those files looking for this package folder, and chances are good you're not going to be able to find it. Now, where it says include a PDF print, you want to go to that preset you just made, that marks and bleeds preset, and select that and make sure it says DES 105, assignment 1, S. McNamara, and then it says folder. You can leave that naming convention. That is completely fine. And you're just going to hit the package button. And it's going to say warning and just say okay. Then you can safely close out of your file because it's been saved. Go into your Finder, and here is that folder that we just made. Inside of that folder, there will be an IDML file. This is an old version of InDesign file, basically. It means that if I never updated my InDesign to Adobe InDesign CC 2018, I would not be able to open up your Adobe InDesign CC 2018 files because they are a newer version. So what InDesign started doing is when you package something, it made this file called an IDML file. And an IDML file can be opened in any version of InDesign. So you're good, basically, no matter who you send your files to. Then there will be your InDesign file, your INDD file. Then you will have a PDF file, and you will have your document fonts, if you use any fonts, which you should, and then your links, which are all of your images. If you zip and upload just the InDesign file, and I open it, all of your images and your fonts will be missing. It will not display correctly. You will not get full points. If you upload just your PDF file, you haven't even shown me your InDesign file. I can't even check to see if you've met the requirements of the assignment. You will not get full points. If you send me in zip just an IDML file, I will open it up, and because I don't have your fonts and links, like at least with the InDesign file, I'll see a preview of what the links are supposed to look like, your images. All it will show me is gray boxes. And I'll say, oh, that's nice. I can't see anything. So you need to make sure that you have this whole folder, and you either right-click on your mouse and go to compress and make a zip file, or I'm just going to delete that one. You can hold down the control key and click, and again, you'll get that compress option that makes that zip file. Next, what you need to do, you need to make sure, again, that you are uploading your entire zipped folder to me in the assignment, and that you are looking over the rubric. Is it on time? Is it the proper file format? A zip package folder. Is it to spec? Is it the page size, the margins, and the bleeds are set up correctly? Do you have two different layouts? Remember, I only did one because of time, but you need to have two different layouts, one on each page. So 15 points for each layout. Are your images sized proportionally? Again, using that white arrow tool and making sure the horizontal and vertical, that those numbers match. You want to make sure, or you can go to that, that drop down that I showed you and proportionally fit your content to that page. That's the other way to fix that. Is your typography proportional, legible, and readable? So remember, if I left that black text over that dark background, it wouldn't be legible and readable, so I wouldn't get my full points there. Was your layout creative? Do you have an understanding of basic design principles? Those are the CRAP principles. That's in your reading and in your videos this week. Did you not duplicate the example? That's worth 16 points right there. All right. Make sure that you are uploading again where it says submit assignment. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a hint here. Choose to upload. And again, because it's going to go, the last place is going to go your Mod 3 folder or wherever you put your stuff for Mod 3. My assignment. All right, grabbing that zip file. I'm going to click open to attach that. Here's a hint. Go to add another file, choose file, and either go to that PDF outside of your folder or the PDF inside of your folder and upload that. Oh, I'm going to have to change this. I'll change it for you so you guys can upload a PDF. But if you do that, I can leave you notes on your PDF file, which might be just a little bit easier for you when you're going back in to make changes going into week 2. So I'll be sure to change this so that way you guys can upload a PDF file as well. I have to just go into the settings. So again, make sure that you are reading over all of the instructions for this week. Make sure that you are looking at your rubric. You want to get the most points possible, and right off the bat, make sure that you're submitting your assignment on time, because if not, you're going to start with an 80% because you lose 20% just for being late. All right, I know it's 8 o'clock and we've reached our limit, but are there any questions before we end for tonight? I know we went over a lot. But again, those readings and videos in the course, that's going to help and, you know, fill in those gaps. I really just kind of wanted to do a demo of, like, you know, some of the really cool things that Photoshop can do. Photoshop, InDesign can do. Photoshop can do a lot of cool things too. But if you guys have any questions or concerns, you know, shoot me an email. Come to the multi-session. Yes, definitely rewatch the video. Try to work a little bit alongside it. It might make it a little bit easier for you. Again, even though I'm designing something different, I'm utilizing the same concepts that you need to do for this week's assignment. And again, don't forget that assessment, that quiz, it's not timed. So you can definitely take your time, go back, double check your answers. I want everybody to do well this one. I want to see everyone really excelling and liking InDesign by the end of this mod, because it is a program you will use probably every day as a graphic designer. So again, I really, it's 2 different designs, one for each page, but it has to be the same restaurant. So you can only choose one restaurant, but you need to make 2 different menu covers, because that's something you would typically do, is show a client 2 different options for them to pick from. And I can guarantee you, when you do that for a client, they're going to go, well, I want to use this from this one, this from this one, and that from that one. You're like, all right. So, all right. Well, thanks everybody who is able to make it. And again, if you have any problems and you want to pop into the multi-session tomorrow, feel free, and have a great night, everyone. Thank you.